Hey guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. If you're new here, my name is Chandler and today's video is going to be my 2024 TBR. So I have 10 books to share with you today that I'm wanting to hopefully get to in 2024. If I sound weird in this video, it's because I'm sick currently, but I thought I'd be able to film this video anyways. So I currently own 5 out of the 10 books, which I feel like is fun because it also lets me buy new books, but I'm also not feeling like I have to go buy all of them. And the first books on this TBR is the entire Throne of Glass series by Sarah J Maas. Technically this is kind of like 7 books, I think there's 7 books in the series, I'm not quite sure, but I currently own 2 of them. I own The Assassin's Blade and Throne of Glass, and I really wanted to get to these in 2023, but I think I'm just gonna push them off until the new year. I don't know a ton about these books, but they are fantasy. I do know. I just love fantasy. 2023 was definitely my year that I got into fantasy books, and I'm so happy about it. And I want to read this whole entire series in the new year because I have read Sarah J Maas's ACOTAR series and it was one of my favorites, and I just want to read a book that makes me feel like that again. She has such good writing and I'm really excited to read this series because I know she actually wrote this first book when she was like 16 years old or something, I heard, which is insane to me because I'm 16. So I think if I could read this whole series in the new year, that would be incredible. Let me look how many books are actually in the series now that I'm like thinking about it. I was right, there are 7 books, but there's 8 books if you're including the novella, which I'm gonna read. So even if I just read a book from the series every single month, I'd be able to do it. So I think that'll be my goal, just to read 1 book every month from this series, and you know, I can read more if I want to. So in January, my top priority is definitely going to be to start The Assassin's Blade, and I'm just so excited to read the series. The next book that I want to read is The Rule Book by Sarah Adams. It's a romance, I know. It's the companion novel to The Cheat Sheet, and I have read The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams and then also When in Rome and Practice Makes Perfect, and every single one of those books has been a 5 stars or almost a 5 stars. So I just love Sarah Adams and her writing. I think her books are young adult, I'm not quite sure, but they definitely feel young adult-ish, just the way her writing is, and I think they're just perfect, lighthearted, quick reads. I don't know anything about this book, but I just want to read it because it's by Sarah Adams. Then we have Wildfire? I wrote down in my notes that it was Wildflower, but it's actually Wildfire by Hannah Grace. I know it still has a sticker on it. I don't want to take it off right now. Sorry, not sorry. But this book is the next in a series. The book that comes before it is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace, and I read Icebreaker this year in 2023 and I really enjoyed it, so I want to read this book. It's about friends of the main characters in Icebreaker. I know that this is a romance. I think they're both camp counselors, but like they've met before and don't like each other, so I think this will be super exciting and fun to read, and I'm just excited to continue the series. Then I want to read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This book went completely viral in 2023 and it's a fantasy book. I know the second book recently came out in this series, but I just really want to read it and see what all the hype's about. From what I've heard other people say about it, I think it's about these people that go to this school for like magical people, and when you're born you're basically put into like a category. You're like a dragon rider, you're like a scribe or things like that, and then one of the girls has been training her whole life to be one of the things, but then she's told that she has to be a dragon rider, and it just sounds so fun. It almost gives me like Harry Potter vibes, just the sound of it. I'm not sure if it's at all like that, but I've never met a person that's read this book that didn't like it, so I definitely want to see what I think of it, and it makes me excited to read it. Then we have The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak, and this would technically be a reread for me. I don't know if I'm going to count it as a reread or not because I originally read this when I was in 6th grade, and I remember just after that when anyone would ask what my favorite book was, I would say this book. It's a historical fiction that takes place in Germany during World War II, and I used to be obsessed with historical fiction during that time period. I'm not exactly sure why, but it was just always very fascinating to me. I know this follows a Jewish girl in Germany and this family takes her in. It's basically like her story during the Holocaust. Definitely it's very deep and not like just a lighthearted book, and it's almost 600 pages, so it is pretty lengthy, but I really want to read this again and like fully annotate it because I just remember reading this in 6th grade that it was so amazing, so I really want to read it again. Then we have Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This is a fantasy book, and this also kind of blew up this year. I know a YouTuber I watched, Sarah Caroli, she talked about it and she gave it 5 stars and absolutely loved it, and I actually have no clue what it's about. I know that she compared it to The Hunger Games, and I love The Hunger Games, so I think that'll be really interesting, but like The Hunger Games in a fantasy aspect, I'll be interested to see like how that works. So I don't have much to say about this book because I don't really know anything about it, but I just really want to read it. Then we have The Serpent and the Wings of the Night by Carissa Broadbent, and this also is a fantasy book that blew up in 2023. Shocker. And again, I don't know much about this one. I know it has like vampires included in it, and it's a completed duology with a novella in between, and I've heard that all 3 of the books are just insanely good. And it's also free on Kindle Unlimited, which I have Kindle Unlimited, so I think this might be my next Kindle read. Then we have The Housemaid by Frida McFadden, and this is a thriller. This is the only thriller on this list, which is kind of fun. I think this is about a girl that is like a housemaid, so she moves into this house with these people, and then they kind of are like really weird. So I don't really know much about it, but I've heard that her thrillers are really good, and you could just kind of like sit down and binge them in one night, which I think that's what I want to do with this one. The next book we have is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, and I don't really know what drew me to this book when I was trying to pick out books for this TBR. It looks like it's super duper short, and that was kind of like intriguing to me because I feel like sometimes really short books that are like literary fiction like this is can just be super impactful and good. I'm reading the summary right now and I don't even know how to explain it, but it seems like it's gonna have so many amazing quotes. And I guess the whole book is the character writing a letter to his mom who cannot read, and it's just him learning so much about his past and just asking her so many questions about life. So I think this is gonna have so many good quotes and just be an incredible book, and I'm actually really excited to read this now. Not that I wasn't before. I'm just really excited to read it, and I'm also glad I have a literary fiction book on this TBR because I absolutely love literary fiction. It's definitely one of my favorite genres, and some of my favorite books are literary fiction. The final book on this TBR is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and this book was also on my 2023 TBR. Same with On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, I think. I'm not 100% sure. But this book is a classic. I don't know when it was written. I think like in the 1950s. Oh, just kidding. It was literally 1967. But I really want to challenge myself to read a classic in 2024. I've read like a few this year, I believe. I just want to try to read like at least a classic a year. And I decided to go with this one because it's not super duper long. It was the shortest classic I had. I think it's around 250 pages. It seems like it's about a girl named Esther who is like depressed and her journey with that and how she kind of goes into insanity. So I think this will be really interesting to read. The summary almost reminds me of like If We Were Villains or The Secret History, and I love both of those books, so I'll be interested to see if it's anything like that at all. And I've also just heard Sylvia Plath is an amazing writer, so I really want to read one of her books. So these are the books I want to read in 2024 plus the ones I don't own. Now I'm going to kind of include what my reading year looked like in 2023 and kind of my goals for 2024 when it comes to reading. In 2023 I had a very ambitious goal and I picked 23 specific books that I wanted to read, and out of those 23 books I read 15 of them, which isn't incredible, but it's not like terrible. 23 divided by 15 is 65%, which I feel like is not that bad. But in 2024 I really want to try to read all these books, and that's why I only picked 10 of them, because in 2024 I really want to focus on not the amount of books I'm reading but the quality of books. 2022 is when I got back into reading and I read 69 books that year, and then I'm not exactly sure how many I'm going to read this year, but my goal was 70, and I think that is just too ambitious for me. When I do things like VLOGMAS and I'm a junior in high school and I'm involved in theater at school, it's just too much to like expect myself to read 70 books in a year. So for 2024 my goal is going to be to read 35 books, because I feel like this is very realistic for me because I read a lot of audiobooks and I'm not ashamed of it. I think audiobooks can be such a good way to read when you don't have the time or even the want to physically sit down and read a book. So you can basically be reading a book like as you're driving to school or as you're doing chores or anything like that. So I think 35 is going to be a good number because I think I'll be able to pass it, but also it's not like 10 books or something like that that I know 100% I'll pass. I just feel like to me 35 is the perfect number, because in 2023 I found myself a lot reading really short books just for the sole purpose of reading a bigger amount of books, and I'm like trying to find novellas that I can read really quick so I can hit my goal this year. But I honestly think that's kind of stupid of me to just focus on the number of books I'm reading, because really what matters is the quality and like how much fun I'm having reading. The value just shouldn't be on the number of books you're reading, because it's way better to read 5 books in a year and those all be 5 stars than someone who reads like 100 books and has maybe 1 5-star. So I'm really just going to focus on quality of books this year. But I think that's all I have to say for this video, so I hope you all did enjoy it. If you stayed till the end, then comment the calendar emojis so I know you watched the entire video. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below. There's only a few more days of Vlogmas left, so you won't want to miss that content. But I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!